like to welcome everybody to the January Tellico Village Property Owners Association Board meeting. I will.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm trying to control this.
Yeah. Continue the precedent set by Bob as having some opening comments. Those of you that attended or watched the town hall, I set out some lofty agenda items for this year. We're going to do our best to deliver on. One is, doing a better job of communicating, getting upcoming board topics out earlier. So we've been talking about that internally, so we're definitely working on that. I wanted to clarify one point that's come up multiple times is people got the impression, at least, that we were asking realtors their opinion on amenities or buy-in fee, and that's not what hopefully that's not what I said. I mean, I was going through it kind of fast, but we had a meeting to get in their professional opinion what would be the impact of a buy-in fee. The second question we had is, what specifically are you hearing as to why people do not purchase a home in Tellico Village after they've come here and engaged a realtor and looked? So those are the two questions. We were not asking for their personal opinion on anything. They represent Tellico Village to any prospective buyer. So I think it's valuable insight that we're going to continue to do on a semi-regular basis, maybe a couple of 2-3 times a year, get their input on what prospective buyers are saying. So I just wanted to clarify that. So what we're gonna, as I mentioned, we want to try to get this back to being a business meeting. And so going forward, starting in February, we're going to have open comments section at the beginning of the meeting. So right after we, maybe approve the minutes of the prior meeting, we'll open it up for public comment for 30 minutes. There will be time limits on those comments as far as some of the feedback we've gotten in recent months. I mean, a lot, that people are asking us to put time limits on individual comments/questions. So, we're going to do that. It's out of respect for all the people waiting behind you as you're trying to deliver your comments. You got 10, 15 people behind you, as well as a bunch of people online. So we need to get to the heart of the question or comment sooner, in a lot of people's opinions. So even today, we're going to continue our current process of asking for input on topics as they come up. But in future sessions, we will have that comment session at the beginning, similar to what other boards that we've watched a lot of board meetings from other POAs, and they all tend to do it the same. So that's another thing. And the last thing is, just want to make it clear, we heard the feedback for the last 2 months on the wastewater tank. Obviously, it's not falling on deaf ears, and we've already concluded that should the tank ever be necessary, and of course, we're still evaluating whether we can mitigate the I&I enough to not need the tank. But if for some reason it is still necessary, it will not go in that location at Sequoia. Quite frankly, it was just the least cost location to put it, because anywhere else you have to put in additional pumps to get the wastewater to the tank, and then potentially pumps to get it from the tank into the main line. So that was simply Jacobs finding the least cost solution, but we heard the message loud and clear, and we'll look for other options should it be necessary. So with that, I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes from the December 18th meeting.
John, I have a couple of updates to those minutes.
We need a motion first.
Oh, sorry. I'll move that we accept the minutes of the December 18th meeting as going to be amended.
Second? Second. Okay. Now, updates?
So, under the CEO update, we just need to change that to indicate that the meeting was held on December 6th with board members, POA management, and Jacobs representatives, along with TAP 2.0 representatives. Because the way it's worded right now, it indicates it's the Friday before the board meeting, which would have been the 13th. And then on the second page at the bottom, just for clarity, the last bullet there says the text of proposed reserve funding bill will be on the TVPOA website.
Okay. Any other corrections or comments? Oh, with all that, I'll ask for approval of the minutes as amended. Okay.
It's 5.
Oh, that's true. Advisory committee appointments, a couple comments too on this. You know, the board goes through and reviews all of the recommendations from the chairman of the committee, as well as the director of the whatever department they're advising. So we spend hours on January 3rd reviewing all this. We get copies of every application that was submitted, all the interview notes, and ultimately the recommendation for who they select or don't select. You know, we hate to turn anybody down that wants to volunteer, but like anybody that's hired anybody in business, you often, if not always, get multiple qualified candidates, and you have to make a judgment between them. So we hate to, like I said, turn anybody down, but there's only so many openings. So here are the members that were either appointed as new or they re-upped their 3-year commitment on the committee. So like I said, we spent hours talking about this, and we did not, I'll tell you right now, we did not accept all of the recommendations. And it's, you know, so we take it seriously, and we push back on a couple of them and change some things. We had to call and get clarification as to why you chose this person over this person. So it's not just a rubber stamp, as some people have accused. And it's not something that, I've heard this multiple times over the years too, that the advisory committees need to be independent of the POA staff. Well, that's kind of contradictory to their purpose. Their purpose is to advise the department that they're on the committee for. So FAC, we get career finance professionals to give their professional advice to our CFO and the accounting staff. They can't be totally independent of that group. So, and again, I would challenge anybody that says that you haven't ever served on a committee, if you're going to make that recommendation, that they be independent of the staff that they support. You know, having served on one, and Mike Braddock, I could ask you, I mean, you were not just doing Judy's bidding, you know, you were there as a...
I think you can find more than one person that would indicate that I am not a rubber stamp.
Yeah. Okay, so anyways, here's what we approved at that January 3rd meeting. I'm not sure I need to say any more about that. Congratulations to those that are now part of this. It's, I think it's very fulfilling, you know, especially like we got a new IT, so there's a lot of people listed under IT. That's all new committee this year. A lot of new members of public services. So we welcome all of them to the team. Okay, so next we have a continuous improvement update. I think we got Mitzi.
Mike,
Actually just going to introduce Mike Harrington of the FAC. He has been an instrumental part in helping us come up with the conclusion of what our real dollars are, our CI savings for the 2024 year. So Mike, thank you for all you've done, and I'll turn the floor over to you.
All right, Mitzi, thank you very much, and good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone in the audience as well. Had an opportunity to share the results of the continuous improvement efforts with the board this morning. So with great joy, I, as the chair of the FAC, have the opportunity to say that we unanimously approved the continuous improvement items that were identified by Mitzi, Judy, and the team, and more importantly, were generated by the great work and effort by all the directors and all the team members of the POA this year. They came up with close to $956,000 worth of savings. So the question you might ask is, what is continuous improvement? Just quickly, the way we looked at it was anything that led to a change in process or a change in a contract or a change in approach that we took towards a business-related activity that led to additional profitability for the POA during calendar year 2024. And so what we were asked to do by the board, who set out a $500,000 goal for the POA at the beginning of 24, was to verify that the information that was identified was in fact meeting the spirit of continuous improvement. And I'm happy to say that every department contributed in some shape or form to the $956,000, and I think we should congratulate everybody on the POA for their great efforts to really turn stones over to generate that kind of result. And so with that, I think Chet has a check that he wants to present to John on behalf of the POA and all the community, indicating the amount of additional profit that was generated from these great efforts.
So as basically the representative of the POA staff, I would like to present the association with a check for $900,056. Yeah, $956,000. Yeah, that too. Yeah. No. Yeah, no, there's a lot of work went into this, and I'm not standing up here as the person saying, hey, look what I did. I'm saying, look what they did, because his description is absolutely correct. Every single department carried their own weight. And the good news and bad news is a lot of this was one-offs, and we may never be able to produce that again based on what those were. And others, the good news is that others will change how we move forward forever and save us money forever, moving each from year to year. So we hope you appreciate the efforts, and thank you.
And I guess my last comment is I would just encourage everyone, if you see folks in the POA, just to thank them for thinking outside the box to generate these kind of results. It's fantastic, and we put a similar challenge, actually more of a challenge, on the group for 25, and hopefully we'll come back next year with a similar good story. So thank you.
Mike, I just want to thank you and the FAC for going through these numbers to verify them, because I believe this is the first time we've ever had an independent review of what's claimed for continuous improvement. So thank you for your time and efforts, and the rest of the team.
We all enjoyed putting our auditor hats back on.
Yeah, I too want to thank certainly Mitzi for her leadership on this. I mean, when we first put this goal out there, let's just say there was a little resistance, because in prior years the number was a lot smaller, but they really stepped up and overproduced this year, and we're all grateful for that. With that, we'll turn it over to Jerry Doherty from the Fire Department.
I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to give an update to the POA board and to the residents. We are celebrating our 25th year as a independent 501c3 organization serving Tellico Village. Oops. A couple items I'd like to share is our run information for 2024, some information about training, results of grants and opportunities, looking forward to 2025, and some thank yous. So this year, we completed with 1,631 calls, 1,320 were medical. My notes at the bottom are inverted, so the gray line is medical, and the fire and other is orange. So it's 1,320 medical calls, 311 fire and other type calls. I'll share a little bit deeper on that. And this is just a 5-year summary of how we compare month by month over year to year. And as I said, we're at 1631. And as of today, which is 14 days into the year, we're sitting at 82 calls. And if you look at last year's December was 89. So we'll most likely have another banner year in 2025. This is I like numbers and to play around with numbers and stuff like that, but this is some information about our runs and the type of calls that we go on. So the gray area is what is called a priority 3 rescue call, lift assist, or people just have fallen and stuff like that. So that's a priority 3 calls. Priority 1 calls are true medical calls, lights and sirens, and the ambulance is most likely dispatched with that. MVAs are motor vehicle accidents, and we had 15 of those in Tellico last year. We had 15 fire calls in Tellico Village, 109 smoke CO alarms, and 503 of the P1 calls, and 817 of the P3 calls. So it's just to show some information about that. The next one is interesting, but I don't want anybody to jump up and say, I want to move out of my neighborhood. What we do is we're able, with our system, is to track where the calls are. And if you look at it, Chautauqua has 367 calls, which is 23% of our calls. So if you look at the Tellico directory, the number of houses in Chautauqua is proportional to the number of calls we have, other than the neighborhood is in that area. But when you see that, that's a lot of calls in that neighborhood, look at this Tellico directory and see how many houses are in that neighborhood, and it's consistent. So there's nothing that jumps out of that. The LC is what is called Loudoun County. That's our mutual aid, and we had 69 calls supporting the neighbors, our neighbor fire departments in the county. Let me just jump back on this one here. This 1,638 calls, we normally will spend 45 minutes on a medical call and an hour and a half on a fire-related call or other calls. Mutual aid calls are normally 6 hours. That equals 2024 was about 7,800 hours of service hours. We had 34 to 39 members in the department during the year. We spent 4,320 hours in training. 2 members became EMTAs. 5 members spent 12 weeks to become medical responders. 7 members completed the 16-hour introductory firefighting course, which is required by the state of Tennessee, and 13 members completed the 64 hours. So that group, 7 of the 13 is the same number, so it's not 20 people, it's part of the 13. So they can go for the interior firefighting class that will be offered later this year in either Lenore City or over at Alcoa. 8 members completed a 40-hour motor vehicle extrication course. 5 members completed advanced life support CPR classes, so they can be instructors for the department and for residents in the village. And we have 13 members that just started last night, a 12-week course to become emergency responders. And this is just a snapshot of the photos of some of the items that we were able to purchase with our grant money last year. The 2 vehicles up in the top right-hand corner was a grant from a resident in Tellico Village. The CO pulse oximeters were a grant from 100 Women Who Care. We were able to buy 3 of those devices that were about $4,000 a piece, and then we outfitted all the firefighters with an individual CO monitor. So when we go to a call, we're able to monitor the CO levels in the house. And those monitors on the left-hand side have been used frequently in the past couple months. The item in the middle is what we call our bags, or airbags, and these are used for lift assist. In the folded position, in the collapsed position, there may be 2 inches tall, and what you do is roll the patient over, slide it under them, roll it over the other way so the patient is centered in the sitting position or a seated position. It's right underneath their butt. And then there's an air compressor. You push the button, and it raises that person up to a seating position, so you do not have to strain your back, and it's good for 900 pounds. AEDs, every member of the department has one of those in their vehicle. And down at the bottom is the boat, the fireboat that we were able to dedicate in May, and it has seen some operations as far as rescues, no fires, some water rescues on the lake so far. Our website, we try to keep this up to date with current information. If you looked last week, we get feeds from the National Weather Service, so we don't have to worry about what NBC or ABC or CBS is trying to say, I'm the better weather forecaster. The National Weather Service gives us information, unbiased, and a lot of information saying here's a 1 in 10 chance here, here's a 9 in 10 chance, this is what your snow is going to be. So we will post that that information on the site as quickly as we can. And it's a place to go for information. And what I'd like to do is on our website, up in the support us, get involved, to go out and look, here's the website up at the top right, but this is also linked from our website. This is a link that'll take you to the 911 Loudoun County website, and you can fill in your name, address, street number. If you have a key, where is it hidden? Does your neighbor have a key? Where is it hidden? Who is the next of kin person? What is the code for your garage? And they will notify us if your address pops up for a call. We have to call them on the phone. They will not put any of that information out over the radio, so it's secured information. So we strongly encourage anyone that has elderly parents in the house or any people with dementia or anything like that, if we need to get into your house, so we don't have to force our way in, that we use this form, we'll call 911, they'll tell us the information and we can proceed further. And then some thank yous to the POA for the access to the facilities in an emergency. They have installed Knox boxes on all the facilities, and inside of each of the facilities they have a key box. So we can use the Knox box, which is a secured system that we have to put our social security number in to get the key, so that we can get the key out of the box to get into the building. And then we have to, then when we're in the building, we know where the key box is, that we can get in any of the offices in the buildings in the case of a fire. Congratulations on the new sprinkler system at the Chota Rec Center. That was long welcomed. Update on the fire doors and sealing your walls and openings, and the maintenance focused on fire prevention throughout all of the facilities. For your hydrant testing and the maintenance and repairs. And last week, the great efforts on the snow removal. To our residents, we want to thank you for your participation and support on our continued fundraising efforts, and mark your calendar for May 3rd for our open house, free. brats, hot dogs, hamburgers. And to Verisk, it was an insurance company. This is a big thank you from me to them. They had a corporate reorganization and forcing the delay of our ISO inspection by a year. The ISO inspection requires me to pull together about 4 inches of documentation. So I don't have to do it now. I can sleep, work on it, and we'll get it done for 2026. And then the other thing that I have here is just a heads up that I have a meeting scheduled next week with the Von Orr Fire Chief and the Madisonville Fire Department, Hopewell, and Von Orr Fire Departments. They have had leadership changes over there, so we're going to meet with them because this would be an interagency agreement for a possible automatic mutual aid for fire and also for training. So we're working that, and we'll be coming back with some recommendations to them and also possibly back to the board. Any questions? Yes, sir.
So, thank you, Jerry. So that meeting with Von Orr and Monroe, will that also kind of maybe talking about Kahidi needs?
It is Kahidi.
Okay, so we'll be talking specifically about Kahidi.
It's what we can do to help them and what they can do to help us. I mean, we can provide our ladder truck in the case of an emergency, and we train their people right now. Their people come over and participated in the emergency responders course and the 64-hour class. They have done that. And then we're going to share some opportunities and ideas as far as what could they do over in Kahidi.
Thank you.
But what I was hesitant doing is with the change in organizations in the fire department, I want to understand where they are and what their vision is, and I can say, okay, how would you consider this?
Yeah, I know Hopewell had a chief change, so when
Yes.
we'll meet them, and I actually met with them last week. Actually, it was earlier this week, and I recommend they communicate with you. so.
Right.
Any other comments, questions? No? Well, Jerry, I appreciate it. A lot of hard work, a great effort on your behalf to keep everybody here safe. So next, we're going to turn to the reserve funding bill. I don't know that we've got any visual aid for that. We talked a lot about this at the town hall. Quite frankly, we got a lot of feedback between the town hall and today. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of emails, as did Lowell Russell. And I'm pleased to say that from that, feedback, the support was nearly somewhere between 3 and 4 to 1 in support of the bill. And Lowell confirmed that he's been keeping track longer than just since the town hall, but he confirmed that his tally was similar to that. So I guess with that, we'll entertain a motion to approve the reserve funding bill being taken by Lowell Russell to the State House. Yeah.
I make a motion to accept the state legislature for the, I'll call it the buy-in fee as proposed.
I'll second that motion.
Comments from the board? Something new, especially for big things like this, I want to go and I want to hear from all the board members. So if you want to take turns,
I'll go first.
okay.
As we know, there are 2 ways to get this fee installed. One is by the declaration, which requires a 2/3 vote. We know it's going to take time and money to do so. Other way is through legislation, which is if it gets passed, first of all, if Lowell takes it to the legislature. Second, if it gets passed, then the board has a vote to decide whether to implement it or not once a year. We can either put it in or not. It's either 0 or 5,000. As I said this morning, if Lowell will carry this bill to the state, I'm in full support of it. If the board isn't in full support of it, I will come back with a motion that says effective immediately. We just need to start with the amendment and get the process set up to get this approved, because now this is year 3 that we've been talking about it. We're losing $1.2 million a year. This is not new revenue. This is replacement revenue, because as we get to build out, ACC fees fall off. So this replaces those fees. And the other reason I like it is we have new residents help support our infrastructure, because these fees will go into infrastructure reserve. So it's a buy-in fee, because when every property owner here owns, like, I'm gonna call it 6,900 properties, we all own 1/6,900th of every asset here in this village. And when somebody comes in, right now, they get a free ride. We've got almost 400 million assets here, 360, 400. We all own a piece of that. And when new people come in and buy a house, today there is 0 buy-in to support those assets. So my position is, one way or the other, I believe we need it. And if Lowell carries it and gets it through, I will support it. If not, we'll go the amendment route.
So, John, last year, I voted against going forward with this. Cited multiple reasons: the inability to adjust without going back to the state legislature, the fact that the posted time period for the bill was very short, and I was not in favor of the percentage approach. I still believe and believe today that a flat fee is far better, because it's consistent with everything else done in Teleco in terms of our assessments, our amenity fees, be it golf, rec, docks, that every resident pays the same. And the other thing, if you are really bored and you go back and look at the video from a year ago, I didn't mention, but I was certainly focused on at that point in time, was that there was no waiver for existing residents in terms of having the fee waived if they are moving from residence 1 to residence 2. I just didn't feel after a certain period of time it was fair that somebody had to pay that. This legislation, as proposed, addresses all of those points. So in that case, I am in favor of going forward with this. I understand the reservation that some have expressed that they don't like to get the government involved in our business. That is my inclination normally. In this case, as Steve indicated, we need to get moving forward on this. This is an opportunity. I think the key thing that perhaps hasn't been communicated is today is a dead date from the standpoint that if we don't get this legislation in today in terms of submitted for the 2025 Tennessee legislative calendar, we're toast, because they don't accept new bills after today. So this has to go forward today, or it's another year in that regard. So all of that considered, I will support going forward with this.
Okay.
In 2018, long-range planning I was on, this was one of the recommendations that came out of that we needed to find other funding other than just user fees or POA fees to help supplement our infrastructure long-term. If that was implemented back then, we'd have between $10 and $12 million that we don't have today. So previous administrations and boards did not want to bring this forward. I also campaigned on this last year and had a lot of support from people that they said they voted for me because of this. So I am going to vote for this fee at this point in time. I think it's the best thing for the village long-term. I think the revenue that it will generate will help supplement the losses we're going to have as we build out. And if people don't realize that we are pretty much revenue flat today because we've reached build out except for 84 lots that are paying POA fees. So we need to find other revenue sources other than what we're just paying our POA fees and user fees.
Hey, you guys, I'm kind of new to the party here a little bit, so I'm learning quite a bit. One of the things that I despise is the government getting into our business. But this isn't getting into our business. This is giving us an opportunity to run our business. They are not mandating that we have to charge this fee or that we cannot charge this fee. This is giving this board and your elected officials the opportunity to put this fee in place. The ACC fees to build a new home range between $25,000 and $35,000. That's money, the coffers it goes into. We have some costs. We put the tanks in, we buy the tanks, but quite a bit of that money goes to accrue to run the general business that we have. And in that space, we've got a big business to go to. In addition, the reserve study's coming up. We're going to do another reserve study in short order and get it updated so that we can make good financial decisions. But the bill has got to be passed today, or at least put in today. I support him running with the bill. I do not yet support us installing the $5,000 fee until we get more data.
Good afternoon. So, like Mike, I'm new to this, but I don't support it. I'll just give you just a few of my top reasons. Our current covenants allows for us to do this within ourselves, so we don't have to go outside for legislation. Like many of you have said, I don't want to get the government involved. Number two, the reserve studies. There's been a lot of talk about reserve studies, but we know it's flawed. I could talk a little bit about it, but I won't talk at great length about it. So just for example, in 2026, we have $0 supposed to be coming out of our reserves, but in 2028, we have $35 million coming out of reserves. 2029, we have $3,293.69 coming out of reserves. Something's wrong. So until we have a target, until we get our stuff straight, I say no. And the last thing is, I think we need to look in the mirror and not out the window. And what I mean by that is, let's look at what we can do to increase the efficiencies of our amenities. Let's look at reducing our cost internally, whether it be efficiency and from labor or from materials or purchasing, whatever it might be. So those are my top three why I will tell you right now I'm not in support of this.
So John, can you guys hear me?
Well, my comment is, I support having the option to do it. As I've told a lot of people, it gives us some funds that don't come out of your pockets, right? So right now, anything we want to do, work on our roads, work on our infrastructure, do any improvements to our amenities, it's coming out of your pocket. And this at least gives us some money not coming out of your pockets, and we can debate all day long how much money do we need, and we're working on that. You can see that we've been working on it, and we will continue. And with the reserve study, it'll give us greater visibility into long-term what we need in reserves. But it gives us that, albeit minimal to our overall organization size, 1.7, I think, is the latest estimate of what it would have brought in last year. That's 1.7 million that you guys didn't have to pay for, or would have. So to me, I like to have that option. Should the market go south and we find that it's impacting home sales, we can turn it off. So like many, nobody likes the government involved. And this way, it just gives us the option to utilize it, not the requirement. That's what I've got for that. And then
We need to get Marty's input.
oh, that's right, Marty.
So can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I was basically going to say what John just said. I mean, if you look at what was going on 2 years ago when this first came up, it was trying to address the issue of raising assessments 5% every year. And something like this, one of the challenges we gave Chet was help us find revenue streams that don't come directly out of residents' pockets. So regardless of the cost side, which we always have our eye on that, and we're trying to keep that as low as possible, operating costs, investments in capital and things like that, we still need to keep an eye on the revenue side too. And if we can help offset some of that revenue with something that doesn't have to come directly out of residents' pockets, I believe that's an opportunity we need to pursue. And this is one of them.
So we'll open it up for property owner comments. Again, we're going to be limiting comments per person to roughly 3 minutes. If you got more to say after that, you can go to the back of the line and give others the opportunity. Again, we're trying to be respectful for everybody in the room and everybody watching online. So please state your name when you get started. Turn the microphone on. Yep.
All right, can y'all, yeah. All right, my name's John Villa. I'm going to tell you, I think you're conflating two issues together into one. The first issue is should we or should we not go to the state? Going to the state at this point without putting this out to a vote, in my mind, shows a complete lack of respect for the contract we all signed in moving in here with our CCRs. Whether or not you can vote today for the $5,000 fee, that doesn't matter. We need to do this the right way. There was a lot of misinformation. A lot of misinformation provided at the town hall. There was a lot of misinformation provided in the telegrams. We do not need notarized votes. That was said to scare us. We do need 2/3 of the vote. That I agree with. That's going to be difficult. It's not impossible. Companies do this all the time. Telling us it's hard. Damn it, guys, y'all get paid to do this. Not the board, the employees. You are paid to do this. Do your job. Support the POA by the rules that it was set up to operate by. Bypassing the rules to go to the government before even attempting, even a survey, a real survey of the village is absolutely demonstrating a lack of integrity in the process. I don't know how you can live with yourselves and do this. That's all I've got to say.
Afternoon. My name is David Taylor. And John, I wrote down the points I wanted to make so I'd be as brief as I could. Oh, what do I have to push? Is it on now? There we go. They tell me I don't need one, but we'll see. I would urge you all to think again and vote against having the POA request passage of the reserve fee legislation now. And I have 2 reasons for that. I think this is the wrong time and it's the wrong way, and the latter is the more important point. I think the fee's premature because we don't actually have the reserve study yet, and we don't have the newly arranged expert review of how to fix water and sewer. We would have a much clearer idea of what we need to do once we have those. I think the details need some more thought. For instance, it's not clear to me anyway, if the fee would apply if I sold a lot without a home on it. And I noticed today the legislation as posted on the POA website this morning does not have in it the exclusions for transfers to heirs, trusts, and et cetera that were talked about in the town hall. If what goes to Lowell today is what's on the website, you're going to have trouble.
I don't want to pause you here, but I want to be real clear. There is a line in the top of that speaks to a statute. We didn't need to have that language specific because there's a statute that already covers that, and we reference that statute that says heirs, LLCs, trusts.
I wondered why that was there.
Yeah, I can just add, real quickly. It's on page 2 at the top of the legislation. It says for any transfer is defined as in TCA 6627
Right.
70112. It's that definition of transfer which provides for the exclusions.
Well, that's a help. The thing is, the projections for our revenue to drop from build-out don't show a huge drop. I think it was 2028. It's at least a couple of years off. We don't have to rush into this now. But my stronger reason for this is I think this is the wrong way to do it. Asking for this legislation is taking away each lot owner's right to vote on amendments to the CNRs. Those are an important protection for each of us, which we were entitled to rely on when we bought into the village. I got to be blunt, taking away somebody's right to vote is just un-American. And I don't think we really have an adequate justification yet for doing that. The only justification I've heard is, well, it's too difficult to use the voting procedure in the CNRs. Well, we don't have to have legislation to do it. There is a vote procedure. The votes don't have to be notarized. And then it was said at town hall that you need wet signatures. I took a look at the CNRs. They don't say that. They say it can be amended by 2/3 approval, either by written ballot or by signatures on an instrument containing the amendment. That's a bit summarized. The thing is, in 1985, there was no such thing as an electronic signature. So, of course, the CNRs don't say no electronic signatures. They wouldn't have known to say that. Today, we've had them for a long time, and electronic signatures are used for binding legal documents in multiple contexts. I sold a co-op in DC to move here with electronic signatures, and we use them for ballots.
John.
So I would urge you all to think again, give a bit more time to this. Don't ask for the legislation in a rush now. If we need it, next year is soon enough. I support the concept of this fee. I agree with most of what the board members have said, but I think this is the wrong time, and especially it's the wrong way.
Yeah, Ron Hansen, been in Tellico Village for 5 years. I attended the FAC meeting on Monday for the first time, and I believe Mr. Reed asked a question of the FAC person, and he asked to explain the increase from year over year in our cash on hand, which seems to be quite a large increase. I'm hearing impaired, and my wife thinks it's just in the frequencies of her voice range. But I did not hear the answer to Mr. Reed, and so I took the financials home and looked at them very carefully. Our water profit in 2024 was $3,427,721, $3.4 million. The profit on the sewer, and this comes from page 37 of your financial statement, the profit on the sewer was $2,094,000. That is approximately a $5.5 million surplus that the POA is currently recognizing in revenue off our water. Where is that money going? I looked at the expenditures. We are for one thing, our cash on hand at the end of 2023 was $21.3 million, and our cash on hand at the end of 2024 was $30.8 million. That is a 46% increase, and it averages $790,988 every single month. Our cash on hand went up. And so I question the need for the huge rise in water rates. They have gone up over 600%. 600. I came here in 2019, and the minimum water bill was $17.45. My minimum water bill right now, as of October of 2024, is $118, and it covers the same minimum 2,000 gallons that most residents use. Inflation has been roughly 5% over the last 4 or 5 years per year. That would be a cumulative of 25% inflation. And we have raised our water rate 600%, which is 24 times more the rate of inflation. Secondly, we do subsidize recreational activities in Tellico Village, and that's a point of contention with some, I know. I didn't know exactly what the subsidies were, so I looked them up. We have subsidies of golf for $392,000. We have subsidies for recreation, general, of $187,069, and we had subsidies for food in 2024 of $514,000, roughly $1.1 million, roughly, in subsidies. So of the $5.5 million, 1.1 is going to subsidies. And our board is choosing to harvest revenue off of a necessity like water and sewer, and they're spending it on recreation. They're harvesting the money from every resident in Tellico Village on a necessity. Water is a life's necessity. And by the way, we have lots of water in East Tennessee. I grew up in Seattle where we got 36 inches of rainfall a year, and we get 51 in Loudoun. We're surrounded by lakes and rivers. And I hear people coming from Arizona and New Mexico where water is precious and it's arid and it's not in big supply, and they have a much larger water bill here in East Tennessee than they do in Arizona or New Mexico. Secondly,
Can I interrupt for a second? I mean, again, to be respectful, we're going to try to keep it to a reasonable amount of time. So if you got more to add, there's a lot of people behind you waiting to talk.
all right. The financial,
And there's
I'll finish in 2 minutes.
One.
The financial aspect is not my main concern. My main concern is that there are mechanisms in our CCRs for the board to raise monies they need. They're forbidden the power to tax. They're limited to 5% increase in assessments. And if they need special monies in addition to, because of special needs, there's such a thing as a special assessment. In both cases, the board has gone first to a lawyer to get $4,800 in water fees from us, and secondly, to the legislature to get another $5,000. That's $9,800. And to call it a buy-in fee is not truth in labeling. 80% of the sales in Tellico are roughly to people coming in from outside. And each house is going to have $5,000 added to the cost. And that $5,000 is not just going to be paid by a buyer. It's not a buy-in. It's a transactional real estate tax, and it's going to be negotiated between each buyer and each seller. And surely some of the cost of that $5,000 is going to fall to current residents. Thank you.
John, can I share a couple pieces of information before Rick speaks? So the numbers that the gentleman cited as it relates to water and sewer for 2024, that is gross profit. What you're missing is the operating expenses associated with water and sewer. That's another $2.1 million for all of the employees, all of the work that goes on with it to provide on-demand services. Then there's another $1.2 million, almost $1.3 million of capital expenditures. And so how we look at this is on a cash basis. So at the end of the day, after you take that out, roughly, there's $2 million that water and sewer have brought to the coffers. And that does not consider then the need to have reserve funds to deal with repairs and things that are going to come up down the road. So I think that's a key piece that some folks are missing. Now, here's another piece of historical perspective, and I'm just trying to give relationship into the numbers. In 2021, on average, Tellico paid $2 a gallon for water. We now, in 2025, per thousand, thank you, sorry. In 2025, we're going to be paying on average somewhere around $4.20 per 1,000 gallons. So that price has doubled. Here's the other perspective that I think some folks don't appreciate or don't understand, and I'm just trying to give you information. Until 2022, the rates that were put out there for water and sewer did not adequately provide to have financial resources to be able to provide for long-term funding for water and sewer assets. It's just a fact. And so I understand the consternation with the amount of the increase associated with water and sewer fees. I get that. But what I'm telling you is, if you look at it from a historical perspective, you have to understand where we started in terms of where the POA was in the late teens and the early 20s, and that provides some basis for the amount of the change that you're seeing. Finally, the last item that I would just point out for you, again, I'm just giving factual information. If you look at the rates for the city of Loudoun, exclude the $80 for a second, and we can debate about the $80, but set that aside. If you look at the water and sewer rates that Teleco has, they are very comparable to the city of Loudoun. You may not like it from a historical perspective in terms of how much of an increase you're seeing. I understand that. I'm just giving you a factual-based comparison. Thanks for your patience, Rick.
No problem. I'm Rick Dram. Don't let Mike cut into my time, okay? So make sure that you got the clock too? No, it's a good dissertation. I want to focus on one issue, and that is the issue of bringing this to the state legislature, which I think is abhorrent. And I'm going to tell you a few reasons. First of all, if what you have indicated, John, and I don't doubt your numbers, if you're getting 3 to 4 to 1 in support of this $5,000 fee, then let's bring it to the village, take a vote. We don't need the legislature because this $5,000 fee is apparently so popular that everybody is going to vote for it. Second comment. There's 4,880 HOA communities in Tennessee. And to me, how dare us think that we're so important that we should take the time of the state legislature and the governor to consider an internal squabble amongst the owners of Tellico Village. I think it is really arrogant to think we ought to take this to the legislature. Not to mention that our state representative is put in the middle of people who oppose it and people who support it. And I don't vilify anybody who supports it, nor do I vilify anybody who opposes it. I've spent, the last 3 years being subtly vilified because we found the legislation in 2022, but I don't want to go into that. And a few other numbers. Of course, when I brought the issue of why not take this to the people, I'm told, oh, we'll never get 2/3 vote. Let me give you a few statistics. In 2012, right, I asked, well, why don't you take it to the vote first? Oh, we'll never get the people. I said, have you ever tried? Oh, well, no, we've never tried. So in 2012, in the village, 84.86% of the village voted in the presidential election. And basically, that was on a 2-day span over at the Chota Rec Center. Then in 2016, 81.35% of the village voted. In 2012, 84, 2016, 82, 2020, 83, and 2024, 84% of the village voted. Now, if you can get 84% of the village to vote, why can't you get 67% of the village to vote on particularly on an item that's apparently so popular.
Time.
That 4 out of 5 people want it. So that's my comment. I certainly hope you don't go to the state legislature and bother them with an internal affair in our community. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Barry Coral, and I've been here for 26 years, and I'll try to stick to the 2 minutes, John. I want to talk about the reserve funding, okay? The Flash came out and said we have 2 options. One is to revise the CNRs, and one is to go to the government. I'll first say that I support and recognize the need to build reserves, and I support the innovative ideas that come forward and how to do this. And we're very, very restricted in terms of how we can do that. But I have a concern about going to the government to circumvent our covenants and restrictions. That's a slippery slope, and I don't think we ought to take it. The real question I have is, why do we have to revise the CNRs? I don't understand. The board of directors, in a single vote, authorized the implementation of a transfer tax of $100. They subsequently, in a subsequent year, authorized the increase of that to $200. I would like to know from the board, okay, what is the legal basis and rationale that the board, through a simple vote, can authorize these changes and increase, and why can't that apply to what we're trying to do now?
Kevin, I mean, we've asked this question.
Yeah, the transfer fee was originally in a policy, and it was an administrative cost for change in ownership. Subsequent to that, there was actually a statute that limited increases in transfer fees, and therefore we were unable to increase that transfer fee after 2011. With respect to why can't you just unilaterally impose a $5,000 buy-in fee and not be within the CNRs, it would not be enforceable. You'd have a concern that there's no ability, you'd have no lien rights, you'd have no collection rights, you'd have no enforcement rights. And so therefore, without it being in the governing documents, there's no fundamental basis to recover it, and there's no fundamental basis to enforce it.
Well, I have a problem with that answer, and I'll state what it is. This is a charge to a buyer, not to a resident, not to a property owner. In order for the buyer to come into this place, they have to pay the fee, and that fee is paid at closing. If they don't pay the fee at closing, they don't close, and therefore they cannot be a property owner. So I don't understand the argument that we can't enforce it. It's enforceable through the title companies and so on, and what is required at closing.
The title companies are not going to have any mechanism to enforce it if somebody refuses to pay it, if there's not a basis for it. There has to be a contractual arrangement. Either they voluntarily agree to pay it as part of a transaction, or otherwise there has to be another legal basis outside of a contract in order to enforce it.
Well, I'm a real estate agent, and nobody has refused to pay $200, okay? They haven't even questioned it, all right? And whether it's $5,000 flat fee or whether it's based on a percentage, okay, you have to charge that, and your buyer knows that in order to come in and own property here. If he doesn't pay that, then he doesn't close. And if the board says that's what the fee is, that's what the fee is. And I don't understand what the CNRs have to be changed for that, because the CNRs are relative to property owners. A buyer is not a property owner.
They're becoming a property owner, and this is the transaction whereby they become a property
They don't become a property owner until they close on the property.
Correct.
Time.
Well, are you going to answer my question? Why? The question is, why can't we do this? I haven't heard a reasonable answer.
I think I have answered it, sir. There has to be an underlying, either a contractual.
I'm not a lawyer, okay? But it's pretty clear to me, being in closings and so forth, that the Property Owners Association says you have to pay a buyer's fee, buy-in fee, then they have to pay that at closing. That's
There
part of
has
the
to be a
closing cost.
contractual obligation. These individuals would otherwise have no contractual obligation to the Property Owners Association. Therefore, any payment of $5,000 or any other amount would be purely voluntarily under that circumstance.
It's not voluntary, it's a requirement to close on the property. It's a contract.
But it's not a contract between the POA and this individual.
No.
If the POA was requiring that as a necessity of closing, the POA would be interfering with another contract.
Well, the POA has to approve the closing costs. They have to approve the $200 in order to close.
POA does not approve closing costs.
Well, every time the title company calls the POA, the $200, it's got to be paid. So I think this needs to be looked at, because I think we're fooling around with something that we don't need to fool around with. I don't see a requirement to change the covenants and restrictions. I think the board has the power to make that decision and put it into effect. Thank you.
My name is Mark Segala. You have, excuse me, sir. You wonder if you have trust issues. Well, because you don't trust us, you have to give away what you want. You folks simply don't trust, so we don't trust you. Repeated false starts, being told every vote needed to be notarized, suddenly disappeared, okay? These repeated over and over and over just lends to the fact that nobody trusts you. Even the surveys that you're talking about, 4-to-1, there were two questions and they got conflated. And that is, are you in favor of the $5,000? Are you in favor of the buy-in fee? Actually, I have been for a long time, okay? I have been for a long time. However, it got conflated with, do you want to go to the legislature? Those are two entirely separate issues and then driven together to create a false survey, okay? Now, the second question along that line, and I have made notes, the $5,000 transfer fee, okay? Is it per buyer or is it per assessed lot?
It's for a transfer of a lot or a home. It's a singular.
So, the guy with a $2 million lot on the front pays the same, even though he owns two lots, because that's the way that property was decided. If he's actually transferring two lots because he's got two lots for that home, is only paying the $5,000. But we were just told that it's just like everything else that's consistent in the village, which is a flat fee. So I'm telling you that the flat fee doesn't work because it's not consistent with what you've just told us. So,
Hang on a second, I want to be sure I understood what you just said, and I'm not trying to be silly with you, I'm not quite sure I got it. If a home owns two lots and they pay two assessments?
Yep.
There's two $500 charges.
Two $5,000 charges?
Sorry, $5,000 charges.
Really? Because that's just different with what he just said. So once again, we don't trust.
No, it's not. It's the same
So
thing.
you're saying they would pay $10,000?
You have a person who owns two lots.
Right.
And a house has
Right.
two deeds. So every time there is a transfer of that deed or lot, whatever word you want to
And
use.
that was the question. Is it going to be a single buyer or is it going to be per lot?
It's per lot.
Okay. That's.
It's a
well,
single
it does.
buying it, but there's two lots being sold, so there's two fees.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And if we can't settle it right here, what are we going to the legislature with it? And lastly, it borders on, and the lawyer will know this, and those of you that don't know, it's not really, but it borders on being a bill of attainder, which, by the way, are illegal. Bill of attainders are laws that are written specifically for a single beneficiary. And while this technically applies to every POA and HOA in Tennessee, it's really being written for one beneficiary, us.
Time.
By the way, what's it like being Winston's niece?
What? Yeah. That was completely unnecessary.
Donna Reed. Timing is everything. And it appears to me that with the board, everything is at the last minute. You're somewhat slapping yourselves in the face or slapping your staff in the face by saying there's no way that you can get 5,000 signatures. This does not need to go to legislation today. It does not have to go to legislation today. I started the petition for the tank, November 30th. That's 6.5 weeks ago. In 6.5 weeks, I have received 2,500 signatures opposing that tank and its location. If I can do this with no resources, but word of mouth, myself, dropping letters in mailboxes, arranging a few open signings, and then an online petition, I know your staff is better than this. I know your staff can do this. Almost 2,500 signatures in 6.5 weeks. You can do this. I think that's the big problem here in the room today for the majority of people. They're tired of, we feel our rights have been denied. We feel our rights have, you're working around us rather than working with us. We're not here to oppose what you're doing necessarily. We're here to oppose how you're doing it. So I'm asking you to reconsider. This does not need to go to legislation today. Thank you.
I just have a few questions.
Name?
When this, Brian Wethington. I live around the block. I could walk here, but I don't. Anyhow, when this bill came up, was it brought to the board? Like, was it written already and brought to the board?
Yes, it's been rewritten like
I know,
over the last 3
Before it
years.
was a transfer fee on HB 116 for a buyer and a
Oh,
seller.
yeah, all of this stuff
you know.
goes before the board.
So, okay, so who wrote it? Who wrote the bill?
Our attorney did, because we asked
Just
him
him by himself?
to. Yeah, all by himself. No,
Okay.
I don't know
okay,
the answer
so-
to that. He would
Well,
have.
between you and him, you both came up with this bill. And then you both decided to present it
Brian,
to
I'm
the
going to
board,
jump
right?
in here. I gave them several editorial comments. And remember, a year ago, I did not vote in favor of this bill. So there
Okay.
were several things incorporated. So I guess I just want to dispute the notion that we just accepted what Kevin and Chet wrote and didn't question it at all. That is completely false.
Well, that's not what I'm saying at all. So what I'm saying is when this bill was created, it initially was created by Chet and the lawyer, right? They presented it to you guys, to the board. Did you guys vote on whether or not to proceed with this thing at that point?
let me give
Like
you
a
a little-
board is supposed to.
Let me give you a little definition. When I came up with this idea, I brought it to the board because the board asked me to come up with ideas like this. The board said, yes, that sounds reasonable because it's been done other places. Go ahead and flesh that out and see what we can do. So I did. But the board was completely aware of that because it was at their behest that I started looking at what our options were. So the board's known about this from day one.
That's what I'm saying. So you told the board you're going to pursue legislation. You and the lawyer are going to write a bill, and then you're going to present it to the board. Because I don't remember seeing anything in minutes about this. I looked. So if we're going to be a board, we're going to be a board, and this is the way it has to happen, right? Somebody presents a bill, it's presented, and then you guys vote on whether or not you want to pursue it and move forward with it, right?
We voted on it last year. I believe it was voted on.
Well,
the
it
year
was
before,
already
too.
done, though, at that
So,
point.
but the previous year was also voted on, and it was amended both years and re-presented to the board to do it, which is gonna happen today. If we're gonna vote on it, we're re-present it to the board, and we're gonna vote on it if we like it. And we've made extensive changes to the language based on input from other people, realtors and everything to this bill.
Well, I don't want you to get me wrong. I'm not saying that I am against the fee. What I'm saying is I want it to be done properly through our covenants and restrictions, right? That's what I'm saying. I want our board to behave like a board, okay? I want them to follow the covenants and restrictions whether they like it or not, whether Chet likes it or not, whether this attorney likes it or not.
Chet doesn't have a vote.
So what I'm saying is we have to work, abide by it, follow it to the letter. We don't just whimsically go, oh, all of a sudden we want to create a law so we don't have to go through the work and the effort to get the vote from the people. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Jeff Berger, I'm in Toqua. So this is going to wax a little into different areas because the hip bone connects to the thigh bone, right? So Mike Braddock, it did touch me when you corrected the numbers on the water and sewer profits. I appreciate doing that, and I appreciate my neighbor having some passion around it, which I do as well. But the problem is, when I heard you say that some of that profit goes to pay for water and sewer, repairs, replacement, so on, right? We have in our documents, it says assessments and fees for services are how we repair water and sewer, right? I don't think right now we can say that because we consolidated all that money in February 2023. And one of my neighbors put together a survey, said, are you in favor of having your water profits pay for Tanasi? I think that's a relevant question. 80/20 said no. How do we know that that money is being paid according to our documents? I guess that's a question. I can see our attorney taking a note on that. Perhaps we'll get back on that. We can't answer that right now, in my view. I'm open to it. I'm just challenging that. The other issue that's connected to this is the reserve study. Now, I know that most people here in this room have never seen one of those creatures. They wouldn't know what that looks like. I happen to know. And I happen to know that those assumptions that drive that document and all of those numbers that we've been using in our financial projections are false. They're false. They're way overstated. And so when I hear that 4 out of 5 or whatever the number was, John, of people support this thing, we've scared the crap out of people. We think that Chicken Little, the sky's fallen in terms of, and we need more reserves. That's just not true. And I didn't see one projection until the town hall of what this future cliff supposedly we're falling off on, right? Because all this revenue that we're not going to get. Now, how can me as a neighbor or all my other neighbors make decisions, and we're being asked and rushed into quick decisions on doing this straw poll that we're giving to Lowell and our POA when we don't have good numbers? We don't have good numbers. Okay, last point. The ACC fee. And this will be something for Kevin to noodle on, and I can tell he's taking notes already. My reading of our documents say, and this is important, reasonable fees to cover costs. Okay? You know what? Excuse the expression, but we've been raping and pillaging the new builds for a long time now.
Time.
I'm sorry, am I getting deleted for saying that? We are not treating those new members that are coming into our village the same way as the existing members. I think that's fundamentally wrong. It's discriminatory, okay? And those of us that are here may think, well, what a great idea. I don't have to pay currently because I'm just going to get it out of the new people. Hey, that is a total false construct, and it's against our documents, and I'd like to get an answer to that at some point. Thank you.
Mr. Hart, before you speak, real quick, I just have a point of clarification. Somebody pointed out on the online video. The misinformation said that one gentleman stated that 2/3 of the village has to vote, but 2/3 of the village has to say yes. And they just wanted to make sure we clarified that.
Thank you. My name is Don Hart. I've lived in the village for a little over 4 years. And for that period of time, I keep hearing this thing getting kicked down the can, down the road again and again and again and again. And when does it stop? When does it stop? It is so easy to nitpick and that this is wrong and it's a moral issue and it goes on and on and on and on. Can we get back to reality here? Can we realize that we have issues going forward that we've got to deal with now, not next year or the year after or the year after. We keep doing that and we're going to drown. And I'm tired. Look, I respect all of the people here who've gotten up and spoken against this. I'm in favor of it. Let me just make that up front. We cannot continue to play games. We cannot continue to allow our thinking to get clouded. We need this, we can't have that, you did this wrong. I don't envy any member of this board. I'm sure some of the newer ones wonder why they've worked so hard to get on here. I tried twice and it failed, and maybe that was a good thing. But I think we've got to just stop. Stop, people. It's so easy to get up here and point out all the errors that this board is making. Stop. Let me just end with this. The villages in Florida, you have an entry fee of $25,000 paid over a period of 20 years. And they pay it because it's a relatively small amount. And if you can't pay $5,000, you can't afford to live here. No, it's right. Well, here we go again. Let's kick this can down the road some more. I think the time has come that we take a vote and we do this thing and we get it done. Thank you.
My name is Donna Oliver. I've been a resident since 2019. I am a widow. I am not one of the extreme wealthies, but I can pay my way. However, I am very, very, very against going to the legislature for this process. Let's vote. Let's do it now. Let's do it the right way, and I will abide by how it falls out.
My name is Shauna Hunt. I just want to follow on to what Don... My name is Shauna Hunt. I'd like to just follow on to what Don said. I'm in favor of the $5,000 fee because I think, we can't continue to kick the can down the road. As much as people say they're just hearing about it now, if you're just hearing about it now, you haven't been paying attention. I'm sorry. The POA board has been talking about it for a couple of years, and you have to be informed. So I've got some comments written down. I'm just going to read them because I want to not forget what I want to say. But my husband and I moved here from Pittsburgh about 10 years ago. We live in Tanasi. When we moved here, Tellico Village had less than 5,000 residents. Today, I believe it's close to 12,000, 11. It's more than doubled in 10 years. Tellico Village was a community unlike any place I'd ever lived before. Everyone was friendly, willing to help if there was a need, and make this community the best place to live. Our marketing slogan was, and I believe still is, thanks to Joe and Fred, tell them it's better in Tellico Village. Over the past several years, I've noticed a change. The negativity and divisiveness that divides our country has taken root in Tellico Village. And many people have many different ideas on how to address them. The POA board and the advisory committees made up of residents like you and me, together with the POA staff, have put in countless hours trying to address these challenges, and you may not agree with their recommendations. But the accusations, disrespect, and dismissiveness of those who work so hard to do their best to keep Tellico Village better are starting to outweigh the positive environment that has always been a part of living here. Now, this is not everyone, but there are numerous people who post negative comments on Nextdoor every single day, get people riled up with what may not even be the correct information, and the negativity and divisiveness intensifies. This is not constructive. Tellico Village thrives on the input and involvement of our volunteers. Outside of the POA staff, we are a community run by residents who volunteer. From the board to the advisory committees to charitable organizations like the Lions Club, United Way and Rotary to T-BART, giving tours to potential residents, over 100 clubs and organizations, and TVN, which I happen to volunteer for. And thanks to Kevin back there who live streams everything. We're a hard-working group of people, and we welcome volunteers if you want to try to give back to the community. Joel and Michael Lackey are residents who happen to disagree with some of the recommendations of the board and decided to make their voices heard by giving their time and ran for the board, and I commend them for that, so thank you. There's a lot of time, as I'm sure you'll find out, it's like a job like no other, with not too much appreciation, as you can see. They were elected.
Time.
Okay, so let's keep trying to make Tellico Village better. That's why we all moved here, right? Thank you.
I'll be very quick, I promise. Teresa Reed, I also am a widow. Now to his new responsibility. I have heard appreciation from everybody today. Everybody who's voicing their opinion. I think everybody does appreciate the challenges you all go through and the challenges that you're faced with. I think everybody is just asking, me included, if this $5,000 is a good move. I actually support it. Just do it the right way. Listen to what the residents are saying, and I think you'll find the tenor within the community starts to change. I know you guys are tasked with tough decisions, but listen to us. If that means it's going to take an extra month or an extra week or an extra, year even, just do it the right way. I'm on board to help you guys any way I can, the right way. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't want to get up twice. I don't know the answer to this, Kevin, you may, but in looking at the Q&Rs, I saw provisions that say there are an awful lot of things we can do in an annual meeting with proper notice to residents about what's going to come up in the annual meeting. And at the annual meeting, you only need a super majority, I think it's super, maybe it's even only a majority, of those present and voting, assuming you have a quorum. Is it possible we could do this that way?
Have the same concerns about ultimate enforceability and collection mechanism. Boards can vote to do a lot of things, but is it ultimately going to be enforceable? Is it going to be collectible? Is it going to be legal at the end of the day? And that's the concern with that.
The Q&Rs pretty well say that if the community decides something in an annual meeting, that can modify the Q&Rs. That's binding.
No, in terms of the amendment provision specific to the CNRs, that is set forth in requiring the 2/3 written ballot.
Okay. So at this point, I will call for a vote to approve the motion to send this legislation to the Tennessee legislator. Yeah. There's a motion on the table.
There was one, and that was your discussion. That was a motion on the table. And so now you guys, everybody got to copy of the motion. There was a motion on the table. That's what opened the discussion. Everybody's had the discussion. Now we got to vote one way or another, guys. That's the way it works. It's. Yes, every one of us is. Let me assure you. So, but we've got to follow the protocol.
So with that, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hands. 5-3. 5-2. Yeah. Okay, we have
Well, John, if I can, just say, look, there's no guarantee that Lowell Russell goes forward and gets this passed. He'll submit the bill, but it's not absolutely guaranteed it's gonna go through. You all are free to, and I encourage you to express your opinions to Lowell Russell or your other appropriate legislators. That's the part of the democratic process, and I respect that completely. So,
I would be open to a survey of sorts. We're not gonna look for signatures, certified signatures, because that's part of the process of CNR changes, is you come in and sign your ballot, but we have to certify that you're an actual resident, you're in good standing, all that kind of stuff. But we could, the last time we did this, half the population took 2 years and almost $100,000 to do that. But we're more than happy to do a robust survey of the population to see, is the representation that we got in the last couple of weeks consistent throughout the village, whereas the same thing with what Lowell's gotten for the last 2 months. It's consistently positive. So we got 6 months before we can even think about implementing this, even if it got passed.
And also in the process, we're hoping the reserve study will be done, so we'll have more information by the time we have to vote on this again. So they may pass it, and we may say, hey, based on the reserve study changes and stuff, we don't need it this year, but maybe next year.
We know what's in it.
We know what's in it. Real quick, guys, there's an opportunity here for us, and I don't know, is Rick, are you still back there? You brought up 82% or 84% of the village voted. Is there a timeline that we have to have all of these signatures for it to work?
It could go on for decades until we get.
Is there an opportunity for the board to call for that vote and start it? And do it at the POA board? Or at the offices, like you said, come in, wet sign, license, just like you do when you vote.
Right. I mean, like I said, if you do the math, it's just shy of 5,000 pieces of paper. If people lined up for 8 hours a day, it would take over 100 days just to collect those signatures, if there was a line for 8 hours every single day. You can't do it online.
You can't do it online.
Wait a minute, why can't we do it electronically? It says any voting option that the state allows.
It says a written ballot, and a written ballot under the Nonprofit Act has to be in writing.
But it
There's
doesn't
not a
have to be,
specific exception.
you don't
There's
have
not a
to have
specific
it
exception.
viewed. You can send it out and people can send them back in.
That is correct, as long as you have a reasonable way to verify. That is correct. And you can put identifying information, and I mentioned this to the board this morning. You can put identifying information on ballots. You can have specific numbers. You can have ballots so they cannot be otherwise reproduced or copied. You can
Right.
also send ballots into third-party
Right.
administrators
So this does
for
not have
tabulation.
to be managed with people sitting in a room at the POA offices. We can send this across the country to wherever a property owner lives and have them do this.
As long as there's a reasonable verification, you're correct.
Yeah, okay. So then there's no reason to think this thing is going to require 8 hours a day, 100 people, all this stuff. That's just overkill. And it feeds right into the whole fear factor story of this takes too long, it's too expensive. Guys, come on, let's just do this thing the right way. That's all I'm asking. Exactly. It's not hard. I don't know why we can't. I mean, there's options. This is the 21st century. This is 2025. Technology is advanced, believe me.
Our CNRs were written in 1986. There was no internet. There was nothing like that. So, but those are the things, yeah. And they have not been changed since then.
I'm not saying about electronic voting. I'm saying about the ability to do things faster now. Does not require what it took back in 2008 to do what they did. There are ways around it now. I mean, one guy, somebody said, who was involved, said that they had people sitting in the offices making outbound calls trying to get people to vote. Guys, there's electronic dollars now. You don't need somebody sitting there doing this. There's email now that you can blast to everybody on a regular basis and track who's responding and continue to feed them. It's easier to do now than it was, 17 years ago. Let's quit making excuses. Let's just vote to do it, get it started, and find out what people really think.
To avoid legislation. We don't want to go down that.
My name is Richard Rocky. I've paid dues to the POA for 35 years. And as far as I'm concerned, this board has just eliminated my right to vote on what goes on in this organization. It's in my, not mine, vote. Everybody here and everybody in this village that pays dues, you just took their right to that vote away.
Well,
It's wrong. Totally wrong.
I'll add one thing about the JOT form, online petition, if you decide to go that route. There are ways that you can have signatures and have them attach official documents, be it their license or whatever verification you need. There are ways for each signature to attach specific documents to that. It's how you set up that document, how you set up that petition. I had never done it. It took me a couple of hours. I did it. And out of the nearly 2,500, 2,100 were online, or 2,000 were online. Cost me $50 a month for 2 months.
Quick question for everybody in the room. How many of you know a government authority, a governing authority that voluntarily relinquished a revenue source? If this passes, I don't expect the POA board to relinquish a $5,000 real estate transaction fee either. Please consider for one moment, and I'll be done in 60 seconds. Instead of going to the residents with the water fee, you went to a lawyer. Instead of going to the residents with a buy-in fee, you went to the legislature. When all of the predication for the $80 water fee, which is going to raise $4,800 over 5 years, all of that predication disappeared. The water instruction, the water tank is being reevaluated. Jacobs is reevaluating what we need. There have been other alternative plans which say we can fix our water sewer problems for $7 million as opposed to the $37 million. There's a big difference between $7 million and $37 million. And at this point, our board does not know with any certainty or accuracy what the needs will be 2 or 3 years from now. And I believe this is just entirely premature. And with our cash on hand increasing $10 million in just the past year, so there's $30 million in cash on hand, this is premature.
well, we do have an agenda, we do have a hard stop, so we're gonna need to move on.
John, can I ask one question?
30 seconds.
It won't take that long. $900,000 check was presented. I think that's outstanding. The problem is, I would like to see the work. I have no idea where that's coming from. On a project-by-project basis or line-by-line basis, where do we come up with that? There may be opportunities that we're not looking at. Thank you.
Mitzi, can we have that sheet posted on the website? Yeah.
Like I said, it's all been verified. Yeah, it's real savings. So Chet, you're up.
Yay. Okay, a couple quick things on comments that have been made already. March, I believe what's the date we meet with the reserve study folks? March?
We have a kickoff meeting actually this week.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
They'll have to get on their schedule.
Right.
Not have a date
Right.
for them to start.
So we're kicking off this week the reserve study meeting with the company that did it last time, and we are also looking at when we can get started. As a point of reference, it's usually about a 90-day process. I can't tell you that it will be done quicker or longer than that, but that's the average. It's around a 90-day process once we get started to do that. And once it is done, it will be published in total. So that's our goal. I really want to get it done as soon as I possibly can. If we can get it done earlier, that'll be great.
I understand that, John, you worked because this will only be our second reserve study. You worked very closely on the first one. How long did that process take?
Well, once we got them out here, it was probably 60 days before they got us a report back. It's just getting on their schedule for them to travel out here and spend
Correct.
a week.
Yeah.
That's
So 90 days is not too far off the beam.
But we have to get on their schedule.
Correct. No, I didn't say, I said we had to get on their schedule to do it. But
Yeah.
the current thing that I want to be sure everybody understands is that the reason I say 90 instead of 60 is because there's going to be a lot more participation in this one than there was in the last. Because I, among 6,000 other homeowners, want to know the number is right. So that's that deal. Looking back at last year, golf did 114,000 and change rounds, and that was 2,615 rounds less. You guys are slacking in the golf. 84% of that was played by members, and 16% of that was played by guests. So the idea that guests are taking over the golf courses doesn't seem to be holding, but they are definitely, 16% is a great participation. Also looking back, we have increased our membership in the rec center significantly. Let's see, in 2023, at the end of the year, we were at 1436. And now we are at the end of year 2024, we're at 1507. So there's a continual growth in that. They also say that January is their biggest month. Yeah, I will not go into why. I'll let that go. Public Works has made vast improvements and got lots of projects going. We have lots of things that are to be decided. In terms of projects, and I'm not talking about water and sewer, I'm talking about things that we are doing within the community in terms of roads and buildings and changes that we're making. This year, one of the changes that is near and dear to my heart is we are putting a fire suppression system in the executive staff building. It is the only building we own now that has zero water or fire suppression. Fire suppression we have now is me with a fire extinguisher. That's it. So we got to improve that, and we have to keep that particular thing. But yeah, I'm not the one you really want to do that. Yeah, exactly. We have at this point gone into and this is maybe of a concern or not concern, but we are at this point putting hiring on a freeze, except for our friends at food service, simply because they are still having a significant level of turnover. Otherwise, there has not been any hiring in this particular month. The only people who were hired were 2, and they were for food service. So as we move forward, we're going to try and review all of the staff, from the executives to the ladies who clean my office, and how many of them need to be there, what their costs are, what their salaries are, and how they if their benefits and policies are within line for POAs of our size. Outside of that, we're moving forward as quickly as we can to make sure that we keep the processes and the services of the community moving forward. I'm good. That's it. That's all I got. Oh, wait, there's other things, but they're not me. Tanasi and the TAP projects will be covered by my cohort in crime, Mr. McRae. I was going to say Scott, but I decided to go with McRae. Sorry, I just kind of went ahead on your thing.
No.
Yeah. Taking you to it.
So Scott, we gave you like 20 minutes, but we're gonna have to cut you down to 10 or less.
No problem. I'll go quickly.
Let's see. Wrong way. Okay, so the Tanasi Clubhouse update. For those of you that attended the town hall, this is a very similar presentation. I've updated a few things. Again, I think everybody knows we've moved the clubhouse forward to eliminate the retaining wall and provide a nice level or a nice drop-off to oversee there. We began the construction back on December 9th. I know there's a lot of people that like to walk out in that area. So if you're walking out along in the construction area, the orange stakes show where the new cart paths are. The pink stakes show where the building are. If you're out there, we will be doing demo tomorrow above the 9th hole for that cart path. So please stay away from the job site tomorrow. But you'll see where for those of you that go in when there's no equipment there, if you happen to walk by there, that's what you'll be able to see. We've removed the trees, a lot of people above the 9th hole. We also removed the trees at the entrance. So on the south side, we're expanding that entrance because it was a little tight. So we had to take those big trees down. I know no one likes to see beautiful oak trees like that come down, but we had no choice. We are out there today removing the sand and topsoil from what was the putting green, and we'll be moving that over to Public Works for stockpiling and used for landscaping later and all. The light poles are already down, and while we did have some weather delays, we're doing our best to try and keep things moving. We did approve a change order for about a $9,000 change order that will increase the overall cost of the construction. However, we found $53,000 worth of value engineering, so we will reduce the overall guaranteed maximum price, and we're ahead there. We did approve all of the funding for the phase 1 and phase 2 and 3 in the last couple of weeks. So the primary contractor, RTC, has all of their subs in place, and I'll be getting a critical path schedule from the contractor within the next couple of days. So here's just some photos for those who've seen. That's what those little stakes look like. If you happen to see an orange stake and you're really, really curious, and you go out there and you see like an F4.6, what that means is fill 4.6 feet of dirt. If you see a C0.3, that means scrape off 4 inches of dirt and all in order to get the final thing. So just wanted to mention that we're moving forward on that. Yeah, please. Yeah, don't move the stakes. It'll be really confusing. Again, just a couple of photos of some of the construction that they've done. This is where the cart path is moving down along the lake behind the putting green. You can see the equipment there. We do have to compact all of the clay as we fill so that it will support the cart paths. And also, we've got a third-party tester to come in and make sure we compact it well enough. With it being cold and frozen, it's really hard to do, so we're really working on demolition for the next couple of weeks. Let me just kind of switch from the Tanasi updates to the water and sewer, the TAP program. We have asked, Jacobs has been studying, as I mentioned before, Jacobs has been studying our water and wastewater system since 2020.
They have identified capacity issues at all of our pump stations and have come up with some recommendations to make improvements there. This includes all of the five main village pump stations, and Kahidi is separate. So that's a separate project that we're also looking at. Under review, as John mentioned at the beginning of the meeting today, we heard you about the waste tank. So that has been put on a permanent hold until we get a complete assessment of the other needs and looking at the RDI&I, which I'll address in the next couple of slides. I got this morning a confirmed date from LUB to meet with Jacobs, our team here, the LUB people and the LUB engineers, and that will be next Tuesday on the 21st. I'm confirming a time with them right now, or this afternoon when I get out of this meeting. I'm working, as I mentioned, I'm working on a rain-driven I&I issue. Basically, for those of you that might be a little bit more interested here, the I&I has to occur at all of our tanks at our homes because we have a pressurized system. That's the only place for rainwater to get into the system. And then, so we're looking at, is it the tanks that are below grade? Are there other subterranean issues where there might be water entering? Or might there be water directed toward the tanks from your house, the way you're either draining, your landscaping, the way your yard drains, or if your roof drains are directing rainwater toward the tanks? And I've put together a plan that is looking at how do we address those. We've got a pilot study that's basically what we're looking at is how do we find the tanks that are most likely to be sources of RDI&I, how do we remediate those, and what's the effectiveness of the solution that we put in place. Basically, it's complicated because a lot of people think it's just the tank lids. Some people think there's other issues. And we have now we've purchased flow meters in order to measure the effectiveness of the remedy and the true sources of RDI&I. So those meters will be received by Public Works near the end of this month. And as we get those, we'll be working with residents to install these at individual tanks, and we will most likely also install some at one or more of the main stations. So basically, it's a little bit more complicated than just going out and putting meters on, putting collars on, or extensions on the tanks. The board may have to approve any actions that we take if it involves a significant amount of money. They've been advised of that. Public Works is obviously going to have to find the manpower to go out and do this. I've got to work with the teams to get this plan in place. We've got to go to the homeowners because I'm sure you don't want us just coming out into your yard and starting to dig up and say, oh, we've decided your house is the right house to put a flow meter on. So guess what? We're going to dig in your yard. We will ask for volunteers before we go in there. I'm sure there's a number of homeowners that will be, I've already had several contact me and say they would like to volunteer to be participants. Here's just some novel and interesting tank installations that may or may not be sources and all, but you can see some people are very creative and decorative to hide the tank. Two of them are under bridges. So how do you deal with those if there were to be issues and all? And just in closing, I think the key thing that we want to look at here, and then I will say as a homeowner and a resident and a professional engineer, I have heard all these comments. I know there's lots of ways to make that big ugly tank less ugly. And certainly, as John said, if we do have to have it, it won't be where we had originally proposed it, where Jacobs had originally proposed it. But I'm looking for every possible solution to say, let's not need that tank, and let's find other ways to do it. As we implement this pilot study, we'll be looking for how effective are we at being able to find the sources of I&I and then fix the sources of I&I. And going forward, all the new construction, Matt's team is putting in these new, what they call E1 tanks. The company's named Environment One, which is why we call them E1 tanks. They are the premier sewer tank. They have special seals, the way the conduits come out, the way the sewer line comes out, and the way your sewer main 4-inch line from your house goes into the tank, to virtually eliminate the possibility of I&I on those tanks if they're properly installed. I have put together the installation procedures. The ACC is reviewing and making sure that the installations are done properly. So going forward, the future tanks that are being installed, we have a great level of confidence that they will not become sources of I&I, and therefore I believe that we are pretty aggressively looking to reduce future I&I on new builds and all. So, John, that's what I have.
Thank you. Judy.
Oh, thank you. Hello, everybody. I want to start off by saying these are the December financials, and this was a bit of a soft close. We know we have a couple of adjustments that are going to have to be made, and then there will continue to be the possibility of adjustments until we get the audit finalized. We have an audit kickoff meeting next week, and then the auditors are scheduled to come on site and begin their field work at the end of March 31st. Oops, I always go the wrong way. I will never learn. Okay, let's start off looking at the balance sheet and some of our cash flow highlights. Our cash balance is up $9.5 million since December of 23. We are earning a weighted average return on our reserve balance of 4.22% and 3.91% on much of our operating cash. I'll point out that of that $30.8 million that we currently have, you can see that the water sewer infrastructure asset fee is $1,100,000 of that total, and there's also still $4.2 million of our Tanasi insurance proceeds in the $27 million. Our balance sheet remains strong. Our total assets are up $9.8 million year to date. Our total liabilities are holding steady. Our debt to equity ratio now stands at 17%. That's down from 23% at the end of 2023. That's a reflection of our continued payments on our debt service. We're keeping up with that. By preserving our borrowing capacity, we are well positioned to address our upcoming infrastructure projects and any other unforeseen challenges. Looking at some other balance sheet highlights, I think a little bit of the numbers are covered up there, but looking at our accounts receivable and our allowance for doubtful accounts, the health of our accounts receivable remains strong. The ratio of our allowance to the AR balance is 50% this month. It was 42% last month, and it was 59% at the end of 2023. Some information on suspended accounts. The balance due from suspended accounts is up a little bit for the month, but down year over year. The current balance of $894,000 represents 52% of our current accounts receivable balance. And again, the difference between what's in the allowance account, that's
Receivables that are more than 1 year old. Suspended accounts are those balances that are more than 90 days old. Let's look at our unearned revenue. The current balance is $6.5 million. We are beginning to once again see some of those upfront payments from residents for 2025 coming in for assessments and golf and rec. And these payments have always provided a nice boost to our cash flow through much of the year. This balance also contains our collected water sewer infrastructure asset fees that have not yet been utilized for our 5 approved TAP projects. You can see the composition of that balance just looking at the bottom right-hand side of the slide. The utility tank assessments that are collected represent 40% of that current total. That's utility tank installations that are not completed. And this balance also includes $1,109,000 of, again, those unused funds from the water sewer infrastructure asset fee. Got a little more to show you on that. Here is the, oh, excuse me, I'm going the wrong way again. I do. We're gonna have to give me some. So this is a little checkbook view of our water sewer infrastructure asset account. We have deposited fees totaling $1,369,000, if you look sort of on the bottom left section of the slide, into the account through December. We've spent a total of $259,000 on 3 of the approved projects, and you can see the spending detailed over on the right-hand side in the colors, leaving $1,109,000 of fees unspent at year end. As funds are spent, they are converted to earned revenue, while the fees not spent remain in unearned revenue. The account has earned $3,981 in interest, leaving an ending balance of $1,113,000 in the account at year end. Let's look at our income statement. We finished 2024 with a revenue total which was $1.1 million better than our forecast. The primary contributors to this variance came from 3 departments. ACC was $500,000 better than expected. That's 45% of that 1.1 million. Golf was $247,000 better, and food service was $363,000 better than their revenue expectations. We beat our prior year revenue number, the top right number over there on the spreadsheet, by $8.4 million, and that's primarily because we brought food service in-house, and also our increased revenue from our utility department, which is water, sewer, and the utility tank installations. Our total expenses for the year, excluding cost of sales, finished $385,000 better than budget. That's about the 4th line down over kind of on the right-hand side. The primary contributors to this result include wages and benefits, which totaled $13.2 million for 2024, which were $656,000 over the budget. The wage overrun, excluding benefits, is primarily attributable to food service. Just our first year at getting that budget right, and there were some misses in that number. Our operating expenses, excluding wages and benefits, finished $1 million favorable to the budget. The greatest contributors were maintenance expense, that's unused emergency water and sewer line repairs, and also services that were less than expected. We didn't have to utilize contract labor also for those deep dig water and sewer line repairs. Those 2 categories together represent 96% of that $1 million operating expense variance. Our net income for 2024 totals $11.9 million. Adding back depreciation expense, our net surplus is $14.2 million. Excluding the Tanasi insurance proceeds that we collected back in July, which was $1,775,000, our surplus is $12.5 million, which is $2.5 million better than budgeted expectations. And again, I've provided you with some of the sources for that variance. Let's look at our reserve spending. Our total reserve spending budget, including carryovers from 2023, was $10.8 million. I don't think I did that. I think that was Karen's. Authorized spending for these projects through the end of 2024 was $5.2 million, and the divisional spending on projects to date, I'm sorry, I'm still on the wrong slide. Let me push this back over here, was $3,884,000. So the budget was the first two columns added together, which is $10.8 million. That's 23 carryovers and 24. And then we've spent $3.8 or $3.9 million on those projects through the end of 24. Here is a look at that, again, that net surplus that I just mentioned to you, $12.5 million. That shows you the contribution from each department. The water sewer line that says 4.77, that is water, sewer, and the utility tank installs. And then Public Works, the other line right above it is all of the other Public Works departments. That's your maintenance, your streets, your that's the rest of it. Let's see. So after our reserve spending to date, we have $8,566,000 of surplus remaining. Our primary carryovers to 2025, we had close to $10 million of budgeted spending for the year. We only spent 3.9. We're carrying over around $6.2 million. We're carrying over the Tanasi clubhouse rebuild, which is close to $4 million of that total. The wave attenuator is carrying over. The budgeted spending on the sewer holding tank and pumping stations was another about $800,000 of the total that was budgeted but did not get spent in 2024. And a couple of mowers for golf maintenance are carrying over to 2025 as well. A few of the projects that were canceled, the Wellness Center porch was canceled. There was a fire hydrant, 15 fire hydrants were going to be installed, and that was $150,000. And then they canceled the $50,000 yacht club bathroom renovation. So we have several funding requests this month. Only the top 4 require board review and approval. And I am going to let Mr. Matt talk about his funding requests.
Before you move on.
Okay.
In the budget, you prepared a 5-year cash flow.
Yes, sir.
Shows the beginning cash, what we're going to add to it, what we're going to spend, what the water projects, sewer projects will cost, et cetera, to show how we get down to negative balance without the
water sewer
Right.
infrastructure asset fee.
And as we know, once it goes on paper, it's wrong.
Of course.
So now we have an actual year-end cash balance
That's bigger than
by about, without the water and sewer, about $30 million. It's about $7 million higher.
27,
Yeah, I don't want you to go through the numbers out.
okay,
But you got that beginning balance is higher,
yep,
but you just explained you have $6.2 million in capital. That was,
carrying over.
which was expected to be spent, which lowered your forecasted opening balance. It's going to flow over to 2025.
Yes, sir.
So if you could update this nice little chart for us for next month to show that we're still in the same ballpark of being tight on cash, even though it looks like we're flush, which we are, but it all depends what you look at.
You got a plan.
Okay. If you do
Yes,
that
sir.
for next month, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'll just leave those there. Are you coming? Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Good afternoon. I want to admit to a very public rookie mistake. I prepared write-ups for each of you, but I forgot to submit my presentation to Karen. So everything that's happening going forward, it's on me. I bring to you 3 capital projects, each of which come with the recommendation of PSAC and the FAC, and I want to state outright, I had a discussion with Chet, expressed to him that as it stands right now, I'm recommending to you 3 projects that came in over budget. I'm prepared to make that up. You're probably aware that your street maintenance budget, your street maintenance capital element is the largest portion of the streets and common property. It's just about $1.5 million. We have some flexibility to bring that in on budget. And I expressed to Chet, and I would express to you, I feel like this equipment is more important to the services that we provide, that I would rather make it up on the street maintenance side than make a miss on some of this equipment. So real briefly, we have a grapple truck. Grapple truck is referred to as the brush truck. It's the big piece of equipment that reaches out, puts stuff behind it. We pick up brush, heavy yard waste. We had to retire a piece of equipment because it simply wasn't safe in 2024. So made it through. We were on pace generally to make it all throughout the village in the span of a month. Since retiring that vehicle and being down to one, we are, as you would expect, about 6 to 8 weeks. We did go out for bids, and we are recommending the highest quote that we received is the Brush Hog C model. The primary reason for that is the Brush Hog C model has the most significant, at 20 foot, it's about the same as everything else when the boom is extended. At the 10 foot, it's almost a factor of 2 increase in the weight that it can lift. Real briefly, I was having a discussion with the streets guys, and they mentioned to me, we use it for ourselves too. So it's not just a service to the residents. When we have a tree that's at peril, either on a roadway or about to fall on a roadway, we will move the tree, and we generally walk away with some 10-inch diameter, sometimes 12-inch sticks of wood that we need the lifting capacity. And we did do a demo of another vehicle, and we could tell the difference in the lifting capacity at the boom extension. That concludes that one. I'm going to assume you'll do a cumulative motion on these. I'll keep going.
Or we can do them one at a time. It's up to you, John.
Yeah, we'll just handle it one at a time, just knock them
Okay,
off.
so I will make a motion that the board approve the purchase of one Brush Hog C model grapple truck in the amount of $246,017.36.
I second.
Any other discussion by the board?
So Matt, one of the most expensive and labor-intensive things you guys do in the department is leaf and branch pickup, correct?
Correct.
So that
Leaf particularly.
Yeah, so that is a huge thing, that is a service we provide. So this equipment is vitally needed and would be used on a very regular basis.
It's 52 weeks out of the year, 5 days a week excluding holidays, that vehicle's running.
Okay.
So I went to Show and Tell a week ago last Monday that Matt hosted over at the Public Works Department, looked at not only this brush hog, but also looked at what he's going to talk about, the leaf pickup. And I support the fact that we need to make these purchases. Thank you.
Anything else? No? All those in favor? 7-0.
Okay, leaf vacuums. Thanks for the segue on that. We pick up leaves between approximately November 1st and February the 28th. We operate 3 crews. 2 of the crews specifically are at issue with this purchase of equipment. They operate with 2 one-ton trucks. Each of them has a box on it. The leaf vacuum shoots into the box gets disposed. The reason for 2 trucks is 1 truck gets full, it takes off to dispose, the next truck pulls forward and continues the process. Our goal really to keep up with the goal of collecting leaves all throughout the village on a 1-month rotation is about 700 cubic yards per week. So cubic yard, yard wide, yard high, yard long. 700 cubic yards a week is an incredible amount of material. And we rely on this equipment. It operates the same way. It is for a period of 4 months. It's operating every day of the week, except when we have to pause for snow collection and holidays. We're running. We did some bids and have had some experience with a couple different pieces of equipment. Took bids, and a couple of things I want to make clear. We know we've got to have the diesel engines. That's where the horsepower comes on the suction. We also have had really good luck with these Tarco pieces of equipment, experimenting with an ODB. The ODB is a gas model. And it generally breaks down more than the older Tarco units that are proposed for replacement. So we are again recommending a higher common denominator on the price. The one thing I would tell you about these leaf collectors, when you go on the various vendor websites and they do a demo video, it appears as if they've got a nice pristine park where perhaps there's a ball field. They've blown the leaves off up kind of to the curb, and they wait till a beautiful, bright and sunny day where the material is dry, and they suck it up with relative ease. Tellico Village is almost the opposite of that. It's 5 days a week, it's wet, it's frozen material, and it's got to get picked up. And for that reason, we also know that when you pick up wet and frozen material, those leaf suction equipment is strong enough to basically suck up something about the size of a bowling ball. As that bowling ball goes through the snoot, the tube that goes in, it can clog the snoot. If it makes it through the snoot, it will slam right into the suction fan. That's it. It's probably done for the day. We can fix it. So what I think I'm telling you is our primary recommendation from this, aside from the diesel, is this equipment, you can do a lot of preventative maintenance on the outside months, and we do. The difficulty is by the virtue of the fact that we are going with wet material, frozen material, they do break. And we are familiar with the Tarco equipment. We know how to fix it. We can get it back on the road faster than perhaps attempting to work with a piece of equipment we're not familiar with or for which repairs are maybe not our strong point. So I've provided you with a quote for 2 Tarco Windy 100s. That's a newer version, but approximately the same size of the equipment that we're operating now, in the amount of $181,803.86.
So I would move that the board approve the purchase of 2 Tarco Windy 100 leaf suction units in the amount of $181,804.
I'll second it.
I'll go first, Matt. So I guess the reason you're coming to us now, you're not sucking really any more leaves at this point, but is it more the lead time to get these things?
Yeah, we are expecting about 6 to 7 months. Reminds me, new board member Lackey indicated, maybe wait on the order so that you can start the warranty period closer to your leaf collection season in November of 2025. Good point. If it gets approved today, we'll have that discussion with the vendor, but we are surprisingly still picking up leaves. I mean, stuff that may have fallen in November, people have gotten through the holidays and it just always finds its way to the curb. And we are picking up less, admittedly, but we are still in leaf season. And we invariably lose about 3 to 4 days resulting from a snow event because we have to disassemble leaf equipment. And the same equipment that pulls leaf trucks and leaf boxes is also your plows. So I suspect we will have plenty of material waiting for us.
Any other comments, questions?
Yes, thank you. Good presentation, Matt. The one thing I wanted to stress is I know the need for preventive maintenance, but looking at it on engine hours, of the 3 pieces of equipment you had out there, one did not have an hour meter on the motor. The other one was replaced and no one was sure what the total hours of that equipment even was, for the replacement. That was the OBD. And then the last thing is how much equipment are we going to keep? Are we going to keep 1 ODB extra to support the 1 OBD we're keeping?
Correct.
And 2 Tarcos go away, or?
2 Tarcos go away. ODB is the spare.
Mm-hmm.
And if Wells wants it, he's welcome to the old ODB. If he doesn't want it, no hard feelings. We will get whatever we can for it.
But we're keeping 2 OBD, one that's for parts right now and the other that's a backup or operational, correct?
The ODB, the 2003, could be 5, the oldest of them. I would probably have to have a discussion with equipment services. They like keeping things around for parts. I don't know that I love that. You and I had a discussion about that topic. I've offered it to Wells. I don't know if it's going to work for him, but it's there. We'll have to have a discussion, but at least since I've offered it to Wells, I want to hold on to it at least till he's had an opportunity to see what happens.
Excellent. So maybe sometime in the future, you could share some what the preventive maintenance programs
You
are
got
for
it.
some of your larger assets.
You got it.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? Okay, all those in favor? 7.
Okay, the last one is a wave attenuator at the Tanasi Basin. The proposed location of this would be right on the north side of NDOC, which is the northernmost dock in your Tanasi Basin. NDOC has a fixed wave attenuator attached to the dock. It's constructed by 2x10 treated boards that extend down underneath the surface of the water. I think the fixed wave attenuator is a bit of a blessing and a curse. It does insulate the other docks for sure, but NDOC takes all the waves. And so after much review on this, we decided to go the path that we've done for the courtesy dock at Yacht Club to put in a wave attenuator to really attempt to keep all of this insulated from the waves in the main channel. We went through the process of getting our TVA 26A permit for this. The last step was it had to clear cultural, and it did. I'm not sure what cultural did, but it cleared it. And we received that just right towards the end of 2024. We did seek bids from 2 different manufacturers, a little bit 2 different products, but the lowest is Wave Eater, which is also the same thing that's installed right around here somewhere. And has been a very, very successful application in terms of insulating the docks from wave action. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
John, I would move that we approve the purchase of one wave eater wave attenuator in the amount of $308,545.
I second.
Okay.
And I think it's important for folks to understand, the POA has been working for close to 18 months, correct me if I'm wrong, to get this wave attenuator approved by the TVA and get it in place. It is badly needed, or we're gonna spend a bunch of money repairing a dock that's getting pounded on right now.
Yep. I talked in your write-up a little bit about the journey we've been on attempting to hold it together. Replace bolts. Bolts break. Put stronger bolts in. Bolts rip through wood. You're kind of at the, something's going to have to change. And it is generally happening right on the boardwalk, right at a place where if it breaks there, it's going to float probably. I mean, it may well pull the anchors, and it was a different issue altogether, but it happened this fall where I played witness to what happens when a dock breaks free from its anchors, and it is a hair on fire emergency.
Okay, anything else? All those in favor? 7. That's it?
Matt, don't leave. Don't leave.
Wait a minute, don't we have to approve the flow meters?
Oh, you're right.
Because that wasn't in, that wasn't in the budget. So if you can talk about those.
We talk about that a little bit, sure. So on our rain-derived inflow and infiltration journey that we're on here, Scott and Chet and I were having a discussion about we need some metering internal to the system. If you're going to attack it, you got to have some means of understanding what have we fixed. And that had us investigating sewer meters, which, since there is no metering internal to the system, is new to us. We identified a particular vendor who's available through a distributor that we use for a lot of our water and sewer meter parts, and ultimately ended up with a battery-operated wraparound meter. So this thing will attach to anything from 15-foot pipe down to inch or less. And it's specifically manufactured for wastewater. This is not a water meter. The preliminary plan at this point with these meters is to do test comparison cases amongst those that we believe are likely I&I contributors versus those that are unlikely. Get a delta there about what does a likely contributor put in the system, what does not. Then you can affect some repairs and see how much you're fixing. Get a sense for what's the journey here, how big is it? I would mention that we did buy a very similar device for the Public Works building, which gets a lot of flushes, and we were able to test the system. We were able to install it. We install it basically underground in a water meter, so it's a flush to the surface. Should not be an impediment to the property owner, but as Scott said, we will want to have conversations with them. But more importantly, we were able to collect the data, went through a process of understanding flow rate. So it was telling us how fast does the pump flow, or pump, what rate does it when the pump works. Had to fix that because we really want it to work like a water meter. We want volume. And so we tested it and then proceeded to this path. And I think, as Scott said, they're due to be shipped from the manufacturer on the 23rd. So I'm thinking last week in January we will receive them.
So a question for you, so I know how to make the motion. Are these all battery operated, or
Yes.
is it a combination of battery and vacuum?
We ended up with one sole source power one, but all of these funding requests are battery operated.
Okay. So I would move that the board approve the purchase of Gray Line portable sewer flow battery operated meters in the amount not to exceed $49,970.
I second.
I'll second.
Any other comment from the board?
Yeah, one thing, you guys are going down the right path. Thank you for helping to define the problem before we just throw money at it. And this is part of the definition, and I'm glad you guys were thinking ahead on this process. And I don't know if Scott's still here, but thank you.
That being said, okay, all those in favor? 7-0.
Matt, one comment before we leave. I want to say I've got a lot of feedback on the snow removal last week. I think you guys did an excellent job, and I want to thank you for that.
And to that, I just want to say I am blessed with a staff that shows up, no complaints. They get a plan, they're happy to execute the plan. I mean, I'm just really blessed. I'm telling you, that's all about the crews. That's not me. Thank you.
Wait, Matt.
Go ahead.
That's very kind of you.
Yeah, we have some online stuff. Matt, we have some online questions.
Yes.
The first one they've asked, would you please address why you didn't complete the fire hydrant project in 2024?
I'm sorry, I think Judy misspoke. So we did complete a funding request for, I'm believing, 6 hydrants that we can move. So just for the sake of explanation, in the state of Tennessee, it is a legal requirement that if you're going to install a fire hydrant, it has to be on something at least not less than a 6-inch main. The fire department would love to have a lot of fire hydrants in a lot of other places. We're just flat out of 6-inch mains. So we identified ones that we can move into more strategic places. We're going through a permit approval for those. So I think it was just a misstatement. We did a funding request. We absolutely intend to follow through with that once we get our approval from TDEC.
For 15 new ones? 15 new ones was what the
Correct.
business carried over.
15 was the estimate, right. We really only found 6 that we can do really a whole lot with without replacing 3-inch line with 6-inch line.
The next one, I know that we've talked about this, but I think just for clarification, the question is, when we have maintenance and yard contractors doing work in our yard, are they allowed to put stumps and branches on the curb or in a nearby ditch?
The answer is no, but I also believe it's happening.
That was the next statement.
Yep,
That was their next statement, is it is happening.
yes, and people do get visits from architectural control on that topic, and we do the best we can to stem it, but my belief is it's probably happening.
Hey, Matt, do you get extended? Go to the microphone, please.
Matt, on your very expensive new purchases, are extended warranties available to us?
Generally, they come with a 1 year, but I will investigate that.
Okay. Yeah, that's it?
That's okay. No abuse.
Well, we're going to do something at future. I mean, we don't necessarily have to do it this time because we're just starting out the year, is have liaison and the board report out on what they've heard at some of the advisory committee meetings. So every board member is a liaison to 2 advisory committees. And again, not a lot of people attend these advisory committee meetings. There are some summaries posted on the Telegram, but just, you know, in the future, we'll be asking for a 30, 60-second report out of what you hear at the Recreation Advisory Committee meeting and so on. So again, we're so early in the year that I don't know if we've had very many. Is there anybody that has anything to report at this point?
I do.
Okay.
We've got Wells McClure, and I'm not sure what his title is. He is the golf course superintendent of all courses. He just achieved, I want to see if I got this right, the certified golf course superintendent designation from the Golf Course Superintendent Association of America. To give you an idea how rare that is, there's over 16,000 golf courses in the United States, a little less than 285 in Tennessee. There's only 902 of these active in the United States. There's 13 in Tennessee. So Wells is one of 13 in this state, and it goes to show the professionalism and the continuing education. So I applaud what Wells did, because this took hard work and dedication on his own time to get it done. So I want to make sure that was there. I almost forgot, because I always assumed he's going to win. Casey went out to Pebble Beach for a PGA event. I think he said there were 82 contestants. He played all 3 of the courses, Spanish Bay, Spyglass, and Pebble. I think he said he shot, I don't know if it was a 68 or a 64 on the first day, a couple of 68s. He won by 4 shots. So he is the PGA winner of the Monterey Bay Classic out in Pebble Beach. Congratulations.
That's great news. Anybody else? No? Okay.
John?
Yeah.
I'd like to make 2 proposals. Do not cost the POA board a dime.
You have to go to the microphone. So you can.
The issue of communication comes up over and over and over again, and there doesn't seem to be a real solution in terms of having an effective means of communicating between the POA board and the property owners themselves. To that end, I'd like to make this proposal, that we have 8 communities and we have 7 members of the board. And I will address that disparity in a moment. That each board member would be assigned a community to visit on a quarterly basis and inform that community as to what is going on with the POA board, issues that are being talked about, and to get feedback from that particular community at the same time. Now, as to the disparity, there's 2 ways that I suggest that can be handled. One is to take the 2 smallest communities and roll that into one. Not the best idea, but it'll work. The other one is to have an ad hoc member appointed by the board, non-voting, who would pick up that one additional neighborhood. Okay, proposal number 2. This was a while back in speaking with an individual, and I ran this idea by him or her. I'm not going to identify that part of it. And the idea is to have excuse me, I'm sorry. A chaplain for the POA board. The response I got back was, oh, that's too religious. We can't do that. A little history, if I may. On July the 9th, 1776, the Congress elected Jacob Duché, rector of Christ Church in Philadelphia, as the first chaplain for the Continental Congress. That was 149 years ago. To this day, there is a chaplain for the Senate. At present, it's the Rear Admiral Dr. Barry C. Black, retired, and who has been serving in the Navy for 27 years and has been the chaplain for the United States Senate. To say that it's too religious, I find actually almost insulting. Within walking distance of where we are, there are 3 churches. There's First Baptist of Tellico, there is a Lutheran church, and a community church. There are a vast number of people that live in this community and in this room that go to church. To say that a chaplain or a chaplaincy for the POA board would be too religious, I think is absolutely ridiculous statement to make. And so I am putting forth that idea for a chaplain that would open the POA board meetings with prayer. I'm an ordained pastor. I offer my own services, no cost at all. Or you can elect anybody who you think is qualified. But I think that as we look down the road and the serious issues and problems that we're dealing with, to suggest that that is not sufficient to pray about doesn't work for me. That's my 2 proposals. Thank you.
Thank you. We will take those under advisement, and with that, ask for...
We've got one more thing I think we need to do for the comp committee charter.
Oh, yeah, we had a small change to one of the charters for the compensation committee. We found ourselves in a position this year where the only 2 members of the compensation committee were board members that were done in the middle of December, so we had no compensation committee after that. So now we're kind of revamping that charter. We're adding a 3rd person, making sure that at least 2 of those members will be here at the end of the year. So there's some typo changes to that. I don't even know if we've got a graphic of that.
We don't have one to put up, and so, but I think we can go ahead and vote on this. The board members have seen it, and then it gets posted to the website, and the community can see it from there.
Right.
So I would move that the board approve the revisions to the compensation committee charter as presented earlier today for approval going forward.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay.
Marty's gone, so 6.
Yeah. Any other by the board? No? Okay, we're gonna call it, we've got a hard stop at 4:30 anyways, so I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Move that we adjourn the January board meeting.
Second? Okay, all those in favor? All right. Thank you.